Oh, I think I printed a bunch of sheets. Maybe hopefully Anusha's printer. Kali. So I just think here. You said you knew how to make this, share it online. Picture. And picture a small group. If you want to come up, you want to bring your chair up to the concrete, it's fine. So you're not so far. Hmm? Adjusting technical.
Take one of those. The mirror and then
That right? Are we on? Okay, thank you. So if I go into okay. Oh, we need tea. Oh, we got this microphone?
oh, I have to go get that.
Sorry, lots of little. We probably forgot a way to make it one. Give me some tea, thank you.
I think you can.
I think we'll have an intimate group. Ananda is in the desert. Edie is out of town. Just waiting for the podcast. What's that? Thank you.
We all have our phones on.
We have our phones on and you turned it on.
You're smart. Too smart for me. Battery.
I'll send you a battery. Come on.
Signal should be okay, but if we're all watching at the same time in the broadcasting, I don't know if it lowers them.
Yeah, we don't need to. Mine's off. She should get at least one so you can see what comments were there or anything. Or the sound is there. The sound. Nobody said there's no sound, so that's good. Hari Om. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. The sound's coming?
Yes.
Okay. You good? Om Mangalam Gurudevaya Deve Matrikcha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindevyo Sarva Lokaya Mangalam Om Sara Shiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ashmaracharya Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Om Stapakaya Dharmasya Sarva Dharma Swarupine Avatar Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha Om Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagatgurum Parapadme Tayostritva Pranamami Muhurmuhur. Jai Sri Ramakrishna. So we're continuing from we left off a long time ago on this topic from the Kali Sahasranāma. Last 2 weeks I think we did Krishna Lila, the prayers, the Guhyakas to Damodar Krishna, and then the previous 2 weeks we did Gita, Devi Gita, right? So but we haven't. I don't think we've done Kali Sahasranāma since before summer. I think before Swami Kirtananda came. It's been a long time. It's good to get back in. And partially there's some, in 3 or 4 verses, like 13, 14, there's some of my favorite names are there in verse 15, like that. So I was like very excited. But then to get there, I can talk about verse 15. It has like Chinnamasta and Prachandika and all these great names, which is very exciting. And I was reason we didn't start a couple weeks ago on Kali Sahasranāma, I was like, how do these verses until then, these are describing her teeth and describing her eyes, describing her smile, and they're a little more, they're not so dramatic, just big stories of the big maha stories of the Dashmahavidyas and things like that. But they're important. Each name is each is building the revelation, or the building that experience revelation of the Great Mother. So we read tonight verse 11 and maybe verse 12 if we get to verse 12. And this group of names, verse 11 deals primarily with, now it's dealing a little bit with her iconography in these verses. Like the last verse, it was dealing with her mala and the kumkum in her hair. If you remember what we were talking about, the different types of malas, what she's holding, and the sindur in her hair, and those type of things. So now it's continuing like that. So it's just going to describe her teeth and her mouth, and then her eyes, and then so that's verse 11 is her teeth and mouth. Verse 12 goes into describing the qualities of her eyes, her 3 eyes, and then it moves in the last few names of that into the next verse, moves into very beautiful about her smile and her disposition, right? And so it's very interesting to juxtapose the beauty of her smile with the first name, which means she who has a horrible form and ghastly teeth, right? These very kind of it's scary, but I mean the word ghora, right? So that terrible or frightful or difficult, ghora-rūpā, ghora-daṁṣṭrā, and then within 2 verses describing that her face is like pleasant, like the autumn moon, things like this. So it's very interesting. You get language that you'd expect in the Dhyan mantras for Lalita, right, mixed in with horrible teeth, like Nash universes, grand universes. Right, so it tells you that the mysterious nature of the Kali revelation, Ghorā-rūpā. So we can say verse 11. It's easy. Ghora-rūpā, ghora-daṁṣṭrā, ghora-rūpā,
ghora-daṁṣṭrā,
ghora-ghoratarā śubhā,
ghora-ghoratarā śubhā,
mahā-daṁṣṭrā mahā-māyā,
mahā-daṁṣṭrā, mahā-māyā,
sudantī yuga-danturā.
sudantī, yuga-danturā.
So the first name, ghora-rūpā. So ghora means fearful, terrible, like this, and rupa means form. So she who presents or shows or has or is a terrible form, ghora-rūpā. And rūpa means form. Rūpa also means like somebody's rūpa is their nature. So you can say her form. So once in her iconography, you can see. When I read this, I go, there's some. We've read most things available on Kali, on Kali over the years, and there's one early book. Not many good books on the goddess tradition really in English. One by David Kinsley. I think this may have been his. No, this is the second book. I think Hindu goddesses. It's a nice scholar. It's his style. At first, I didn't like his way of listing names. Interesting. Now I spend my life talking about the names, so I've surrendered to his style of scholarship. But his introduction to the Kali section, ghora-rūpā, and let's see, I want to read just that one paragraph. The goddess Kali is almost always described as having a terrible, frightening appearance. That's saying ghora-rūpā, right? She is always black or dark, is usually naked, and has long, disheveled hair. She is adorned with severed arms as a girdle, freshly cut heads as a necklace, children's corpses as earrings, and a serpent's as bracelets. She has long, sharp fangs, and is often depicted as having claw-like hands with long nails, and is often said to have blood smeared on her lips. Her favorite haunts heighten her fearsome nature. She is usually shown on a battlefield where she is a ferocious combatant who gets drunk on the hot blood of her victims, or in a cremation ground where she sits on corpses surrounded by jackals and goblins. So this is a very nice, this I think is a good description of ghora-rūpā. And it's funny because, people come here, they come in to see Ma, she's so beautiful. And actually when I made a Facebook announcement for this discussion, I wanted to show a picture of her fierce teeth and her, a little bit, so I chose a very famous, that famous Mashan Kali picture of the Holy Mother, but because those lithographs they're black and white, that were painted over time, so different people to paint. This one is a little bit, I found one a little bit more scary than the usual, right? But still just shiny, and it's hard to see her as scary. I mean, she's scary enough, some of the paintings we have of her, but that's just usually how we think of Kali. And we mentioned a long time ago, many years ago during when we read the Chandi, actually somebody else was reading the Chandi, and when Kali appears in the Chandi, she appears also in a ghora-rūpā, right? She appears emaciated and skin and bones, dressed in bloody animal skins, and holding horrible weapons with protruding fangs and teeth, and a lolling tongue. Of course, we have her tongue sticking out. We don't have a lolling tongue the way like that, and very hideous description. Right, and I remember Sadhananda, he raised his hand to the speaker, Nandaji, and he says, but we don't see her this way, we look at, we all come, that's not, you say, describing the first time Kali is described in the Chandi, and yet we've never even, nowadays you can click around on Google, do Google image search and see paintings of that, but most people don't think of Kali, her devotees don't think of Kali in that horrible ghora-rūpā. Remember his answer is, but you're not a demon, right? To a demon, she appears as frightening like anything, right? And then that similar there's a mantra about Lord Nishingadev that Nishingadev's to the demons he's deaf, but to the devotee, you see Prahlad is praying like this. He's seeing God. He's not seeing this ferocious thing. But what Hiranyakashipu saw and what Prahlad saw were not the same. Although they both saw the same reality, their experience was different. One of them was the object of their affection and their ecstatic devotion. The other one was Daima.
Late.
No problem. We're also late. And give a sheet if we still have.
Let me give you the sheet first, and then the sheet.
So it says that that one mantra, the Nishingadev says that the Nishingadev's just like a lion. The teeth of a lion are like death to its prey, but it's affection and it's surrender to its kitten, right? You see the lion or a cat picks up its kitten, it just does like this, just surrenders, right? But to its prey, it's a very different thing. Right. So similarly, so that these fierce forms of course, these are fierce forms that have been ghora-rūpā, right? These are fierce forms. Things like Narishinga and Chinnamasta and Vajrayogini in Buddhism and Hinduism. We have these kind of fierce deities. But actually, the idea behind is that anybody experiencing divinity is going to be like this. Divinity itself is overwhelming. And if you're accustomed and you're in love with it, and you're trying to feel it, trying to experience it, it's going to be like, it's going to be an ecstatic experience, right? But if you're not, it's good. But if not, it's going to be, it represents death, right? All that we hold to be real, all that we think about ourselves, all the closed-hearted nature of the ego, it doesn't survive. It's a smashan. It's a cremation ground. It's Nishingadev rips apart, or Kali comes and smashes them with her strange skull-top staff, and sword and bell and scissors and all the things mentioned to Chandi very beautifully. So it's ghora-rūpā. So that's one. So one thing is that for a devotee we don't see Kali this way. Kali is like, doesn't seem to be horrible, but that's one way. For a demon, she's horrible. But this is not actually. This book is not meant for demons, right? That's not describing. Be careful, Kali's horrible. That's not what Kali Sahasranāma is meant for. It's actually meant for sadhaks and initiates, right? Adepts, right? This is an advanced text for close devotees of initiated devotees of tantric lineages. It's a esoteric text. So ghora-rūpā, one we can understand that why this fearful, seemingly horrible form is to the ego, to the demonic nature. She's death. She destroys it. But even to the devotee, she also, right? Because what ghora-rūpā is not just all these forms that we say. She's even here at Kali Mandir, right? She has a sword and her tongue sticking out, right? She has a jackal, right? She has a garland of heads. She holds a skull. Right, so it's like, but we don't see it, because we take it a little bit symbolically, perhaps, or metaphorically, or we have such relationship with her that we're not scared of these things, right? The things that in normal society would be considered negative are not terribly scary in ghora-rūpā. But there's another thing, we've been discussing in the last few weeks in the Bhagavatam about the nature of the subject and the object. Right, and the problem is, even when you're describing her rūpa, ghora-rūpā, ghora-daṁṣṭrā, these verses, you're describing something that's not an object of description. You're describing you're trying to think about something that can't be thought. It's never a thought. You're trying to perceive something that never can be perceived. Right, you're trying to objectify something that's never an object. It's always a subject. It's not even always a subject. We can say in Vedanta we start with that, between subject and object, seer and seen, right? But actually, in the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, the opening scenes, the opening statement is that actually she's the reality in which the seen and the seer and the seen arise. Right? She's not just a seer. She's the reality behind the seer and seen, right? So, in her ultimate sense, she's not we can think of her and describe her as having a garland of skulls and all these things that are being described, fearful teeth and the whole thing. But what is being described? So the thing, ghora-rūpā, her form is frightening. She presents a fearful appearance. Or, rūpa, not only form, rūpa also means nature, right? She is fearful. Right, or that which we see is not only that we see her as her form is terrible, but she is the terrible. Right, she's like we say, Ma is mahā-tripura sundari. Right, she's the most beautiful in the three worlds, but she is most beautiful. That's okay. We can talk like that. That's the natural way of talking. But that's saying that she is beauty in the three worlds. Right, it's not Ma is compassionate. She's compassion. We're not compassionate. We can in the world of duality, we then make sure she's compassionate, right? But in the non-dual thing, she's compassion, the thing itself. If the thing can be described, she's the thing itself. It's not one of her qualities; it's her, right? So that's the idea. So ghora-rūpā. So in one sense, we can also say, and we've talked about this before, it's a bit of a bold perspective on reality. Is like even Ma is the horrible. She's the wonderful, and she's the horrible. She's birth and she's death. She's sickness and she's health. She's success and she's failure. She's poverty and she's prosperity, right? And so many names have been outlining. Some names are describing one form, some names describing another form. In the Chandi, in that mantra we've discussed before, it's considered a small kavacha mantra, a protective mantra. He says, it starts like, may Chandi, I forget the exact, may Chandi protect me from the front, may Ambika protect me from behind. It's described like that. And then it says, O Mother, O Goddess, O Devi, Mahadevi, you have unlimited forms, some exquisitely beautiful and benign, and others horrendously frightening, right, fearful. With each and every one of them, please protect me. Right, so it's like we want to see you. In other words, we could say, oh, then hopefully they'll all come and protect us. That's the simple devotional attitude. But you take that to a Advaitic kind of perspective. You are the most horrible forms, and you appear in the most beautiful forms, right? The most pleasant and the most unpleasant. They're both your forms. It's naturally to want the pleasant. That's a psychological health. Right, sometimes people are like, I God is both the pleasant and the unpleasant. Therefore, I try to be poor, or I try to be in suffering, or I try to I try to live in ugliness and in darkness and in tamagun. People, you see like that. Sometimes, there's, they relish suffering, but it is divine. It's true, but that's not a normal psychological tendency, right? Sometimes it's a practice to overcome our attachments between the good and the bad. Yeah, some of us were goths in high school, exactly. I didn't want to specifically mention anybody by name. but
that Catholic thing.
Yeah, so sometimes it's not so naturally. Actually, by saying that sometimes she's the pleasant, the unpleasant, is also making a real distinction, right? In the world of manifestation, there's horrible things and wonderful things, but we're called to see the one behind. And actually, just within a few names, she will say she's the one behind the horrible and the unhorrible. So I'm not jumping, I'm not making it up. The next name says that almost, right? Excuse me. Ghora-rūpā. So that's one thing. So that her form is, she's frightening appearance. And she's all that is scary. She is that also, right? Her nature is that also. So in the world of duality, the non-dual truths behind our experience of duality between horrible and wonderful, she's the horrible and the wonderful. But another thing is that the one behind that one behind it is also ghora-rūpā, right? It's overwhelming. That's another way of saying that the experience of that oneness behind both the good and the bad and the pleasant, the unpleasant, the beautiful and the ugly, is itself overwhelming. One of the definitions that scholars use in religious studies like that to define like the sacred and the profane, right? One of the definitions of the sacred is that it's dangerous. It's potentially it's something you approach with. It's a little bit frightening. It has to be treaded carefully. It's not common. Right, so this is one way of also saying it's ghora-rūpā. It's something. The thing is, if it's like electricity is neither good nor bad, you can say, right. You can cook food with it, and you can hurt yourself. A child can burn itself shock itself, right? So you can say, oh, it's neither good or bad. It's the reality behind both good and bad, right? But also, it's still dangerous. Even good, it's still dangerous. Even if we approach it to get good out of it, we should be very careful because it's awesome, right? That's the idea. Sacred means awesome, right? So just like electricity, it's neither good or bad, right? Or fire is neither good or bad, right? Or that's a classic example we'll get of. You can pray, you can read the Bible in the light of a fire, or you can kill somebody in the light of the fire, right? But still, fire is itself neither good nor bad, but but actually it's good, and actually it's bad. Right? You have to be careful. Not bad. I'm using the language of duality, right? What to do. Our language works on that principle. I went blank here. Let's open back up here. Ghora-rūpā. The next name, ghora-daṁṣṭrā. Daṁṣṭrā. Ghora-daṁṣṭrā. So ghora, again, fearful, horrible, scary, frightening, and daṁṣṭrā means teeth. Her teeth are frightening, right? And often she's painted with fangs or fierce teeth. And one of the things you see, even in a benign form of Kali, like the Dakshineshwar or here at the Kali Mandir, is, her, she's still, teeth are predominant. She's, you only see, actually, you see her black form, her red mouth and like that, and then you see the only little bit of white on her is usually very brightly, her teeth are always predominant. Not always scary looking, but always predominant, right? And so the teeth are important. In the Chandi, maybe I forgot to bring my Chandi. It's okay, I can remember it, I'll remember it. Maybe it's on the desk, the Chandi. Saturday, there's so many things going on at the same time and trying to manipulate and keep everything straight. In the Chandi, when she appears in the Chandi, she appears in the battle against first she appears in the battle against Chanda and Munda, and she kills Chanda and Munda, and then Shumba and Nishumba and Raktabija, and she appears in these forms. And in the battle, one of the things, especially in the seventh chapter, her favorite way of, that's the one, thank you. I'll read you. It's a very short little chapter, but not small. I'll just read it. It's only like 20 verses. 27 verses. Headed by Rishu Vacha, the Rishi said, headed by Chanda and Munda, the Daitas, the demons, fourfold army of elephants, charioteers, cavalry, and infantry went forth at Shumba's command, brandishing weapons. They saw that Devi smiling gently seated upon her lion atop a great golden peak of the high mountain. Seeing her, they contrived to carry her off. While some approached to a sword drawn by bows poised in readiness, Ambika cried out angrily against those forces, and in wrath her face turned as black as ink. From her scowling brow, Kali sprang forth, frightful of countenance, armed with sword and noose. We would almost say frightful in countenance. One way of saying it, I don't have the Sanskrit here, probably another way of saying it is ghora-rūpā, right? So she appears frightening on the battlefield, bearing a strange skull-topped staff, adorned with a garland of skulls and clad in tiger skins, her emaciated flesh appalling, her mouth gaping, her lolling tongue horrifying, her sunken eyes glowing red. She filled the four quarters of the sky with her roars. Swiftly, and we actually, there's some of the names we did, she creates a fearful sound. These are all in the names of Kali. Swiftly fallen upon the Asuras in that army, she slew and devoured those hosts of the gods, of the gods' foes. Attacking the rear guard and seizing the elephants with their drivers, warriors and bells, she flung them into her mouth with a single hand. So this is the thing, that her horrible teeth, what is that her favorite way of killing things in the Chandi is she swallows them and grinds them in her teeth. This is the imagery, the ghora-rūpā, ghora-daṁṣṭrā imagery. She sees one asura. In like manner, she tossed a cavalry with its horses and the charioteers with their chariots into her mouth and ground them furiously between her teeth. She seized one asura by the hair and another by the throat. Crushing another underfoot, she slammed yet another against her breast. The weapons and great missiles of the asuras hurled, she caught in her mouth and ground angrily between her teeth. Again, the teeth. All that mighty army of evil-minded asuras she ravaged, devouring some and beating others severely. She struck down some with her sword and battled others with her skull-top staff. Other asuras she met destruction between her gashing teeth. Again, the teeth. I think the teeth are mentioned 4 times in this section. When Chanda saw the entire army of asuras swiftly struck down, he rushed at the terrifying Kali. With a formidable deluge of arrows, the great asura engulfed the glowering Kali, while Munda hurled discs at her by the thousands. mirrored discs that entered her mouth, and so many solar orbs vanishing into the denseness of a cloud. This is very important. As they threw all these weapons, they entered her mouth just like so many suns being behind the cloud. This is very important. While with a terrifying roar, Kali laughed in fury, her fearsome teeth gleaming within her ghastly mouth. Mounting her great lion, the Devi rushed at Chanda, seized him by the hair, and severed his head with her sword. Seeing Chanda slain, Munda attacked her. She pushed him to the ground and struck him in fury with her sword. Seeing Chanda and also the most valorous Munda slain, the remaining army panicked and fled in all directions. Right, so we continue. It goes a little bit, a few more verses, but the main point is there, right? Is that grinding the teeth. So it's interesting that image is given, right? Is that because this is an ancient mythological story, believed of the ancient world, a fight between the gods and the demons, where the god has appeared. But it's also a deep metaphorical story about our own stages of our own sadhana and big truth about the world. So they're read on different levels. Ancient history, ancient world version of history. That's partially it, right? And descriptions of powerful forces. It's stages of our sadhana, and it's big spiritual truth, the aha that comes with spiritual realization, right? And the listeners to this story were Samadhi and Surata. Right, they were struggling. They approached the guru. The guru told the story, and so he in a way that they get revelation, they get understanding what's happening. So the idea of suns and moons, and it's repeated a few times in the battles, suns and moons disappearing into her mouth. Right, she chews up the weapons of the demons. Right, just like suns and moons disappear behind clouds. Right, it's the image of cosmic destruction. Right, of time. So this is given a clue. Actually, this gives a clue of what her teeth mean. Right, the symbol, what they symbolize is what grinds everything. What is we think of time, and in the Gita, Krishna says, "I am time, the destroyer of worlds." You can say the devourer of worlds. Right, nothing. What eats us and swallows us and is time itself. Right, that's her horrible part of her horrible form of Mahakali. She's time itself, right? And time, not just moments disappear and small things, grow and die, right? But civilizations disappear, right? Ages disappear, right? Suns and moons come and go, right? Right. Right now there's suns that are exploding or fizzling out, right? And other ones that are being generated, most likely. Otherwise, we'll run out. So it's important. So that's this image of all-devouring time is part of the symbolism. If we were to give it that, we can give it that. And I am a little bit emboldened to state, this one of the meanings of the teeth is time, because the final name in this verse will say her teeth devour the yugas, ages, right? So it gives little clues sometimes, right? It's not just that, but it's definitely also that, right? And so so we take that as she's time. Her teeth grind everything, swallow everything, chew everything, right, to dust. Right? Again, from dust we come, dust we go, right? So that's a commentary, can be a commentary of ghora-rūpā, right? Part of this awesomeness, overwhelming, she's time. What would it mean? And so, what do we mean by time? Time is, give a psychological meaning, maybe not a astrophysical meaning, a quantum meaning, or something like that, which I don't have. Is the experience of movement, right? Of causation. So, time, space. Swami Vivekananda talks actually in Vedanta. You have the supreme reality, Brahman, right? And then we have Maya, which consists of time, space, and causation, right? So time, space, and causation they're not three things. Just like we say Satchitananda is the nature of Brahman, they're not three things. There's three ways of describing one thing, right? Actually, this is 1,000 names of describing one thing. All these names are ways of describing Satchitananda. Even ghora-rūpā, as Kali is non-different from that. But time, space, and causation are ways of understanding this one experience. What is that? And according to Vedanta, in Vedanta it's called Maya, right? In Tantra, that's called mahā-māyā, right? And she is mahā-māyā, and it's her, right? So even this this ever-changing reality is also, which is horrible in many ways because it's death, right? It's life and birth and death, and even birth is not an easy thing, you know. Can't say birth is good and death is by pleasant. Birth is painful and death is painful, right? And in between also, it's ecstatic and it's ecstatic and it's agony and ecstasy at birth, life and death, right? You know, like, but she is that horrible, awesome, overwhelming reality. That's the moving, changing, temporary world, right? Ghora-rūpā. And actually, another meaning of these ghora-rūpā, these fierce forms. In Hinduism, it's there, but in Tibetan Buddhism, it's the other kind of world religion, or worldwide religion, a great mystical system. Spiritual system that uses that has these fearful deities, right? These, you know, you have the benign Buddhas, right? But you also have, you know, these Mahakala and fearful forms, right? And one of the meanings that is given to them by the Buddhist saints is that we have to see the reality shining behind the apparent. Right, the parent of the world of birth and death. That's the world duality, and therefore the world of suffering and happiness. The world duality. The reality has to be seen. And another thing is you can't get caught on the form, right? Because it's very hard to say, oh, you shouldn't get caught on the form of God, right? Because we're trying desperately to remember the form of God. That's a spiritual practice. We say God's name. We have a form we meditate upon. We meditate upon that's the way the Guru gives, the scriptures give. According to the Guru's instructions, you know, we meditate upon the deity with love and devotion. You try to visualize the form and the qualities and the names, right? But so it's very hard to say something, you don't get caught on that. Right, that we're not even near. We can't even remember it. What to speak of trying to go beyond it. Right, we're not at that point. But you see, you can get caught on it. Even at the surface level, you get caught in it through fanaticism, where this is the only form, this is the thing, or you're doing it wrong, and you don't. You know, it's like it has to be this way, right? Sri Ramakrishna said that people debate and argue which way, whether God's tilak goes this way or that way. Right, you know, like nobody's seen God. Neither camp has seen God, but they know which way his tilak, what type of tilak he wears. Right, you know, right, or the famous Sri Ramakrishna told the story. I'm forgetting the characters. There's known characters. These are characters of his time, so it was known. Where some people are arguing that Vishnu's God, or somebody arguing that Shiva's God. Right, and they go to a third person that person was a historical person known, considered a wise person in village tradition, and to get the answer. And so he says, have you seen, he asked the Shaivite, have you seen Shiva? He says, no. Has your father seen Shiva? No. Has your grandfather seen Shiva? No. Has your great-grandfather seen Shiva? Have you seen Vishnu? No. Has your father seen Vishnu? This discussion is ridiculous. You know, you think it's this way, but it may, you know, it's like once you see, then you'll know. Right, that's another thing, right? So there's a danger of getting caught. So sometimes you have this beautiful, exquisitely beautiful form of God that we're meditating and thinking about, and this is not our problem because we're trying to develop love and devotion and concentration on that form, but it can become we can get caught and yes, in trying to go to the reality that's both beyond name and form and reveals itself in all names and forms as name and form. We can get caught on one limited idea of it, right? And of course, those limited ideas don't have to hide reality. We also they reveal reality. Also, that's the goal, right? But we can get caught on the form and miss the reality that shines through it, right? And so sometimes these fierce forms are designed to break us. Sometimes rather our God becomes a monster, right? You have Lalita, so beautiful. In the next verse here it says she's ghora-rūpā, ghora-daṁṣṭrā, you know, smashan vasani, with garlands of skulls, you know, where I just read from the Chandi, you know, it's like, you know, it was lolling tongue and blood, and you know, it's like, you know, like it's not that we're trying to worship a monster. We're trying to go beyond name. Can't say go beyond name and form, because that's not what I mean, you know. But to the reality that's behind and reveals itself in all name and form, right? So to not to get caught. So that's another goal of these, or function of these kind of frightful or views of reality. Ghora-rūpā, ghora-daṁṣṭrā. So she's time, right? So she is revealed herself through the world of the changing world, right? So that's a very big thing we have to see in everything that's changing. It's her. So in last 2 weeks ago, we were from the Bhagavatam. The Guhyakas were praising Krishna, baby Krishna, and saying you are Purusha, right, and eternal and unchanging, and you are Prakriti, which is full of the gunas and is and nature of ever changing time, right? So you yourself, same thing. You are not only the supreme person, the supreme reality, supreme consciousness, the ground of being, but you're also the world of name and form and change, right? So that's a very big and so, but that form, by saying that she is this world, it's also a scary thing, right? Because it's an easy thing, and mysticism, very often we try to escape the world, to the reality, right? The common thing, it's a natural thing. It's that we shouldn't become attached. If we get attached to the world of duality, we're never going to find the unity behind it, or the reality behind. But but to see the world as to see the one behind the many, to see the one in the changing, it's not an easy thing to digest. Ghora-daṁṣṭrā. Daṁṣṭrā means teeth.
Teeth.
Yeah. That daṁṣṭrā and danta, these words have even dental has these type of sounds to the. Daṁṣṭrā is a common word for teeth. In ghora-daṁṣṭrā. So if we say that she's time and she's the changing, right? As time, she destroys everything, right? As the changing, she destroys everything. So she's ghora, scary, frightening, difficult, painful. But the revelation of Kali is not to scare us and to cause us and to have us wake up to the fact that everything is horrible, right? And even the God we thought we were searching for is horrible, right? It's all these things you have to remember are revealing or are designed to help us meditate upon the one behind, the one that is everything, right? Actually, we'll get to, if we get, I don't know if we'll get to that the next verse. We'll have Tirocana, these three eyes, and right these ideas, because it's part of it is beyond. It's in the world we have the world of duality, right? That's one problem. Right, and then if you can say another step, I'm not trying to, there's different theological systems, I don't want to arrange them, right, but in experience, from the world of duality, we try to find unity, right, that's a devotional approach to non-duality, right, to find the unity behind, to find the one behind, the one connecting, the one that's us, the one that's become us, she's the changing, we're also changing, she's also become us. Right. It's not necessarily that I'm Kali, that's not what's meant, but she's also us and also you, and to find that one awesome reality behind. And then, but unity is different than Advaita, right? Or Kavalyam, and that's complete non-duality, right? Or can't even say oneness. That's not the right word. Also, because unity is the experience of connection and identity, right? It's an experiential, it's a spiritual experience, right? An emotional spiritual experience, which is a goal of one of the major goals of spiritual practice. But Vedanta and Tantra also holds behind even that. There's another experience that's beyond that, where it's not unity, there's not a connection behind. There's only one, right? And that experience is also ghora-daṁṣṭrā. Because that experience also destroys everything. That's the experience that rips apart the ego. They cannot survive it. Why it's a little frightening. To say, I want to feel union with God, and love and union between people, and to find the one behind everything. This is it's safe and beautiful and nourishing. Right? But for there to be only one, what would happen to us?
So unity implies separate things united.
Or the uniting thing that the thing that unites that are things that are separate.
Yes.
right?
So
You know, it's like-
separation is
because there's
defined.
still like in the language of Sankhya, there's Purusha and Prakriti. You are Purusha, O Adi Purusha, O Krishna, and you are Prakriti, changing, right? But if you are this and you are that, you're actually only one, right? And but that one, if that one were to be realized, or to, of course, it can't be realized because that's only, you can only realize unity, right? To use the example, Sri Ramakrishna says that a salt doll goes to measure the ocean, right? You know, it's like, who's going to measure the ocean, right? It's only the ocean knows how deep the ocean is. Nothing. You can't say it merges. That's perhaps there's an experience of that for the salt doll, if we can attribute this to a doll of salt, I guess is how you translate it, right, rather than salt doll. It's just the thing itself, right? And that's when that. So there's some little hints of this when if we were to. Of course, in the traditional biography of Sri Ramakrishna, right, his life is described, and his different sadhanas and experience are described by his disciples and biographers, and they're given some interpretive meaning. So it's very tricky to give interpretive meaning to somebody we can't comprehend anything of what he's experienced, right? So yeah, we know what that means. That means he went beyond this, he went beyond name and form. This is absurd that we even use in this language, but we can try to safely use the language of his disciples who knew him, maybe knew him best, you know. So they describe that even was under the guidance of Totapuri, if we were to take that story, when his guru was telling him to concentrate, the form of Kali kept coming, right? You know, the Kali who he loved and he felt union with, and he got lost in oceanic visions of not only images of visions of her in her form, but also as all-pervading consciousness, where he lost himself like that. But still, there, as we were to take the stories as they are, that was, can't say in the way, because that's the goal, but to a particular realization it became in the way, right? And that his guru, you know, we know the story, to meditate here and poked him and cut him in the third eye, and then if the story goes, and where the text says that he took the sword of wisdom and cut Kali in half. Right, of course it's her sword, so it's really getting behind her, right? But so it's not that he went beyond Kali, right? He found the actual Kali, but that in that Kali's presence, which is only one, there's no second, right? So there's nobody to experience. You can't say he experienced the non-dual reality. You can't experience the non-duality. It's only the non-dual reality, right? Experience requires the experiencer and the experience. That's the world of Purusha and Prakriti. Right, a subject and object, right? You know, so union, subject and object can be in the world of union. This is the closest we can get to have an Advaitic or a non-dual or a unitive experience, or the connected experience. But the final thing is ghora-rūpā, ghora-daṁṣṭrā. You don't survive it, right? It is there, right? Sri Ramakrishna said only Brahman realizes Brahman. We can say, oh, he's a Brahmagyani, right? What does it mean? That's a different thing. I mean, that we have, because actually we know people who we believe have realized Brahman, right? But what they say Brahman's like, they can't say what Brahman's like, right? Because in that, whatever that state was, whatever that reality was, there was no second to know it. There's only pure knowledge, not knower and known, right? So it's a different thing, you know. And when they come down, then they like in the Upanishads and the Shankaracharya and Sureshacharya, he says all that can be said about it, that thing which nothing can be said, right? That can't be known. That's not even you can say it's a knower. It's not even the knower. It's the reality. It's the one thing beyond, like that. But those who've, I can't say experience it, but those who come from that, who are the revealers of that to us, they say that, what do they say? It's wonderful, right? That's all it can be said is amrita, right? It's nectar. It's a different experience, right? It's satyam, anantam. What is it? Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahman. That's one Upanishadic.
So those people who report that, how come
yes.
they don't come down and report that it's terrible, and it's
They can go. The sage who wrote this hymn says ghora-rūpā, ghora-daṁṣṭrā. Right? It's like, it's not because it's actually to say it's terrible. These are not truth statements either. Right? Even when somebody told Sri Ramakrishna on his deathbed almost, the Buddhists are people say the Buddha was atheist. He says no, they don't understand. He says the truth can be when the truth is realized or seen, or can't even say like that, but it can be called ashti or nashti, is or isn't. Right? Both statements that you say is and isn't, or you can't get more opposite. These are the two farthest extremes of the existential spectrum, is and isn't. Right? But both of them are just as true in revelation of that. So horrible and wonderful, beautiful and ugly, frightful and blissful. These are just ways of describing. These are the overflow. So I remember just now. Very good. In Dattatreya, the Avahuta Gita of Guru Dattatreya, he says, actually, I've not, in the opening verses and at the end verses, he says, I'm not teaching a systemized philosophy, right? What, from my own experience, can't even experience, from the one reality, right? This has just gushed forth, right? It just flowed. I spontaneously composed these verses, right? So one verse says one thing, the next verse says the opposite thing, right? So it's like he's not trying to make sense. It's just that all they can say is like, what can I say about it? Those who, if we can say, like the Kemse can say something about it. Ghora-daṁṣṭrā, ghora-ghora-tarā. So this has different meanings. The common meaning is, so ghora means frightful or scary or terrible. Aghora means wonderful or not frightening or beautiful, right? And so ghora-ghora, right? So not here, but some places it says you are ghor, you are aghor, and you are ghor and aghor, right? So you are both the horrible and the frightening, and you are the beautiful and the sublime. You're both the pleasant and the unpleasant. But this actually says ghora-ghora-tarā, right? So this has a couple different meanings. A simple meaning, and some translations I have that. That you are beyond. The idea of tara here means like tara, right? You are beyond the transcendent to both ghor and aghor, right? You are beyond both good and bad, or pleasant and unpleasant, right? You are the reality behind, and that's, we could say, that's an easy thing to say. But actually, the more likely interpretation, is there's ghora-tarī. There's a famous mantra, we've been actually reciting it today because Usha's writing an article on Kashmir dealing with. This is a famous mantra for Kashmir Shaivites. It's from the Vedas also. The ghore-bhyo to ghore-bhyo, ghora-ghora-tarī-bhyasyaha sarvataha sarva-sarvebhyo namaste rūpa rudra rūpebhyaha. It says ghore-bhyo to ghore-bhyo, ghora-ghora-tarī-bhyasyaha. So most translations, and if you look it online, look it up in some translations of the Rudram and other Vedic texts and hymns, it says you are the horrible, you are the not horrible, and you are both the horrible and the unhorrible, or you're beyond the horrible and the non-horrible. Both, all these meanings are there, right? Swami Lakshmanju, the great master of Kashmir Shaivism, who initiated this mantra to a major sadhana, secret sadhana, not so secret out there, but it's something that they're initiated into practicing, and believe that this has tremendous power, because it says that actually, I read it, maybe I have it here. It says actually it says, I bow to all the Shaktis which are part of Rudra, within Rudra, Shiva, right? And those Shaktis are, I bow to all Shaktis which are embodiments of Rudra from all sides and all ways. These are Aghora, Ghora, and Ghora-tarī. Here, ghora-ghora-tarā. Here, most likely it's referring to this particular Shakti. In Tantra, in Kashmir Tantra, they're very specific on analyzing the internal Shaktis of Shiva and Devi, right? So ghor-aghora and ghora-tarī. right? And then, so what are those Shaktis? So he says there in his interpretation, says he elaborates. O Lord Shiva, you alone transform yourself into all forms, into forms of the powers of Rudra as Aghora. Aghora means the enlightening and uplifting energy, right? Aghora means opposite of Ghora, right? So Aghora means that which is enlightening, illuminating, and brings us up, right? You are also the ghora-tarī, this ghora-tarā or ghora-tarī, which is a frightening, not the one that's beyond, it's a frightening energy, right? That pushes one down. And you are ghora, and ghora is the energy that keeps one fixed, neither rising nor falling. So you do think, oh, ghora rises you and ghora pushes you down. He says, no, a ghora rises you, and ghor here means ghora-daṁṣṭrā, ghora-rūpā, right? Your form is ghora, right? Your teeth are ghora, is what keeps you at the same place. Which means just in the world of name and form, the normal world of name and form without consciousness, neither rising nor falling. That's what most of us are. We're not being pushed down, and we're not rising up, right? So we're just here. So in other words, it could be, if we were to give this interpretation of the verse, that you are. It's another glossing of ghora-rūpā, ghora-daṁṣṭrā, right? You're also the energy that keeps us bound in this world, right? Yeah. What's the next line? I think the next line says mahā-māyā, right? Śubhā. And then within a few things. So ghora. So the general usually people translate this line. And there's only a few existing translations in English of the Kali Sahasranāma, but the often thing is that you are ghora, you are beyond ghora, right? But here I think it's very specific because it's using language that fits, right, to the Kashmir Shaivite interpretation, and they're expert at the use of these words. You are both. Thank you. So another way of thinking of it also is, some commentators have also said that ghora, aghora, and ghora-tarī, right? These are the three, right? Thank you. These are considered the three Shaktis of Shiva in this mantra, in this ghora-ghora-tarā mantra. These are the three. So it means, what are the Shaktis of Shiva? These are the Shaktis of Devi. Right, in Tantra, Shiva's Shaktis are called Devi. These are, or Kali, we call her Kali, right? And by saying that she's time, and she's saying that she's the manifested world of name and form, and time, space, and causation, is saying that she's the gunas. Because that means, that's another way of saying, in Sankhya, you are Prakriti, right? So in which case, then you can also interpret Ghora means Rajaguna, Aghora means Sattva-guna, and Ghora-tarī means Tamaguna. Right, one pushes you up, one pushes you down, one keeps you active. Right, so it's another way. There's ways. I mean, sometimes a simple thing. Ghora means she has big teeth, like, and we give so much interpretation. Yes.
So what are the tamo gunas? Which ones do you call as
So tamaguna would be inertia, darkness, ignorance, sloth. And inertia, energetically it would be inertia. Qualitatively it could be lethargy and laziness, and intellectually it would be ignorance, right? So that's the thing so that's actually something we need to struggle a little bit against, right? It's also mahā-rūpā as ghora-tarī, right? But and then Rajaguna is and energetically it could be not inertia, momentum, movement, activity. It could be psychologically as passion and excitement and restlessness and this type of movement like this. And then Sattva-guna would be peacefulness, knowledge, rest. So also these are also in the color of Ma. I may put it in my notes. I don't know, but coming now. You see Ma's Rupa, this ghora-rūpā, ghora-daṁṣṭrā, we see her black, red, and white. This is showing Tamaguna, Rajaguna, and Sattva-guna. Right, the three colors. Our whole shrine is all, the floor is white and black tiles. The curtains are red. It's like everything is this combination of red, black, and white. Right, is because these are the main colors of Kali, her yantra, red, black, and white, to show that she is the three gunas. But interesting, it's mostly black, right? So it's not necessarily that she's most. In one sense, she's the Shakti of Shiva, and Shiva is Tamaguna. He's the one that destroys the universe, right? And therefore, the predominance is black, right? That's a simple thing, right? So, but that's not usually we think. Oh, people in a sectarian way. Oh, like Kali is a tamasic deity. It says so right here, ghora-rūpā, ghora-daṁṣṭrā, right? You can see it says right here, right? She likes cremation ground and ghosts and spirits, and so I guess she's a low energy, right? That's it may be the goddess, but in a low form. But that's usually not what's meant. Although it is what's meant. Tamaguna also means something. Tamas only means darkness, and darkness is not always ignorance, right? Black is not always bad, right? That's an unfortunate psychological definition, right? Black is also the unknown, and what we know is infinitesimal, and the truth is that we don't know is immense, right? The great mystery, what we know about God. We say somebody who knows something about God we call saints, right? But what's unknown about God is infinite, the great mystery. Somebody has one particle of sugar, you're sweet, but the ocean of sugar we've not tasted, right? A mountain of sugar, we've had one taste, some little bit of knowledge. Somebody has some knowledge. Guruji explained his own in his own childlike way, not trying to be egotistical. But under the practice of his guru, he practiced night and day. He practiced like anything, and he said, "I became successful." Right, my mind entered. He called what's called in the scriptures nirvikalpa samadhi. Right, he says, and then his definition. He says, "Enters a fool, comes out being wise." Right, he says, "I'm my own proof. I was a fool. He never went to school. He wasn't, he was from a poor family. No education. Right, almost a slave in his youth. He was raised by other members of the family because his family passed away, and uncles and uncles took advantage of him, and almost indentured servant, and the horrible. He has but something happened entering, but he couldn't say I know the complete. Right, it's like what is it that he touched that is almost can't be said. He even said I can't be on the mind can't hold it. It can't think of it. It doesn't even want to think about it. That's what he used to say, right? He says the mind, when the knowledge of that Parabrahman or the Paramatma comes, right? The mind not only can't, it doesn't even want it. It can't hold it, right? What it is can't be known, right? But entering it, touching it, knowing something, he says, with new knowledge. As a result, I have knowledge. It's true. I can attest to it. Tremendous knowledge, right? He was he used to say this is the proof of spiritual attainment, right? The glory of spiritual attainment. When entering the fool, comes out wise, right? Enters miserable, comes out ecstatic. Whatever it is, it has satyam, jnanam, anantam. It's unlimited. It's satyam, shivam, sundaram. It's beautiful. They say these type of satchitananda. They use words. Sometimes they use these type of words, right, to help us. Right. So ghora-ghora-tarā. Where are we? Now śubhā. Śubhā is almost the opposite. Is the opposite of ghor. Right. Śubhā means good, wonderful, light, right, dazzling, right, good, beautiful, bright. It means welfare. It means pure. Right. So you are ghor, but you're also one thing you can say. Oh, you are ghor, and you are the impure, and you are the pure. That's one thing. But I don't think that this is the opposite of ghora-rūpā. Right, it's not the opposite of the opposite of ghor is aghor, not shubh. Right, shubh I think here means that you are that pure awareness, the pure consciousness, the one reality that's behind both the pleasant and the unpleasant, the wonderful and the horrible. Right, you are shubha, you are that pure. That's a good definition of here. I think that this is the meaning of shubh. Shubh means also means wealth and happiness and health. That it could be that you are a ghor and you are wealth, happiness, and success. But I think here in the cluster of names, I think it's you are the reality behind. You are that pure, shining awareness, the pure reservoir of our reality. Mahā-daṁṣṭrā. So here, mahā-daṁṣṭrā again. Daṁṣṭrā means teeth, right? So you are the great. So we've established, maybe not established, we've claimed, right, that one of the meanings of this daṁṣṭrā business of Ma's teeth is that she's time, right? And time-space causation, that's time that destroys everything, right? Swallows everything, chews everything. So mahā-daṁṣṭrā means she's the great time, right? So we use that, if we keep expanding it, then she becomes Mahā-kāla, right? The great time was the name for Shiva, right? And so she's the great time, and but as śubhā, she's beyond time, right? So it means she's Mahā-kāla, and another way of saying beyond, which is beyond time. If Kāla means time, means darkness and time, Kali means the one who's beyond time, or beyond darkness. By starting as dark, that's one of the Kala and Kali, right? She's time, and the one beyond time, right? Or she's darkness and the one beyond darkness. The reality. So there's ways of seeing the thing, So that's, and also Maha also has another meaning. Maha means the other means it doesn't just mean great. It means transcendent. It means beyond, like para. Right, he's not only the topmost; it's the one that's beyond. So it's beyond this time. It's another way of saying that she's Mahā-kāla, she's a great time, or she's beyond the great time, as Mahā-kāla or Mahā-Kali. Then mahā-māyā, right? So that's to the point, right? You are. So how does that one seem to be many? Right, this is called we call Maya. Maya means illusion, but we've discussed so many things, and as the verses go, we'll give many different definitions of Maya, right? One of my favorite, one definition of Maya is that we're not seeing what's there, right? One of the definitions, the word deluded. Deluded means that we're not clear, we're not seeing clearly, right? It's one thing. It's not that we don't know; is that we're not seeing. We can't see clearly. We're deluded. Oh, you're in Maya. We sometimes use that term. They're used in that way, right? Maya also means magic. Maya means trick. Maya means ignorance. Maya means many different things. But the simple meaning is that we don't see what's the truth. So in these little cluster of verses about ghora-daṁṣṭrā, ghora-rūpā, right? We don't. What's the truth we don't see, right? Could be. We're not seeing the truth, because mahā-māyā, many names of her as Maya will come throughout, but they come, I think, to illustrate, to shed light on the verses around it, right? So it's like, what are we not seeing? We're not seeing the truth that even in this world of change, it's her. We don't see her we don't see her as the world, as time, space, and causation. We don't see her behind the world, right? We're not seeing the truth of things, right? But it's very hard to see the truth thing, because the world duality doesn't. That's the thing, is that even the world from duality, non-duality is beyond. Kavalium is not a thing to describe, right? But even the world of unity, the feeling the one that is because we're in our experience of the world duality is very. Every experience, every thought, every touch, every conversation, every taste throws us out of unity into duality, right? So there's a verse in the Chandi, we read from the Chandi, but it's one of the opening verses of the Chandi, when I think it comes when Surata and Samadhi the sage Medas he says, she mentions Maya, and they ask mahā-māyā. They ask, who is this? What is this mahā-māyā you're asking about? I've never heard this term, right? What is it? Who is it? What are her qualities? Well, you mentioned her, and then he tells these three episodes of Madhu Kaitaba and Chanda Munda, Raktabija and Shumbari. He tells those stories to illustrate what is mahā-māyā. But one of his opening definitions is very beautiful, and it's also part of that Saptasloki Durga, where Durga Saptasloki, the 7 verses summary of the Chandi. If I can pronounce it, Jnaninam mapi chetamsihi. So Jnanina, this is the knowers. It's not here, but the wise, the sages, the ones who have knowledge, right? There's not even us. I mean, we're not in that case, but even the wise. I can almost put even those wise people, right? O Devi Bhagavati Chetamsi, their consciousness. Devi Bhagavati Hisaha Bala Dakshkrisya Mohaya Mahā-māyā Prayachati. O Devi Bhagavati, or that she is, I can't say it's not in the form of a prayer, that Devi Bhagavati, right? That goddess who we worship as the Bhagavati, the supreme goddess, the goddess Kali, Durga, Amba, Chandika. That goddess forcibly draws the mind away, moha, in delusion of even those who have knowledge, though even sages, we could almost say, or at least wise people, jnaninam, right? Jnaninam api, right? So that mahā-māyā prachati, that goddess is mahā-māyā, that takes the mind of even the wise and deludes it, right? So the thing is, so even the wise, you see, even somebody dedicated their whole life to God, even has divine experience, internal divine experience, still, sooner they open their eyes, they see duality. Sooner they open their mouth, sooner they hear everything. Everything is this is called mahā-māyā. What is that mahā-māyā? Is time, space, causation, nama-rūpā, experience, all these things that we experience. Everything experienced is Maya, right? But it isn't. But it's interesting because it says that it's not that mahā-māyā is being described as the one who causes somebody moha, illusion, right? That means, so another word, mahā-māyā, is somebody who's beyond Maya. It's like what is that? Mahā-daṁṣṭrā, right? So we can't say the goddess is in Maya, right? She controls Maya. She's beyond Maya, right? So it's very interesting that it's her, by her power, we're all in Maya, which is her power of projection, of creation, sustenance and destruction, or time, space, and causation, right? Her power of expression and manifestation and experience, called the world. She's that Maya. She's the mahā-māyā. She creates Maya, by which even the wise become deluded. What does deluded mean? We don't see her, right? Although it's only her, and she's doing everything. But the thing is, it's okay. It's good. We should think, oh, it's all her, and she's doing everything. But you can't really know that unless you know the one that's beyond everything. That's the thing. It's a healthy. Sometimes it's healthy. I remember what our the tantric sadhu Shankaracharya from Sahasranāma Ashram. He says actually it's good. He says we have to think these thoughts and know how she's become everything and she is everything, and all rūpas are her rūpas and all energies are her energies, because it's true, and therefore it's good to have a philosophical system, a theological system that's also fits the truth, right? But there's also a danger. Pretty soon, it's all Ma. Ma's doing everything without inner experience. Without that inner experience, then we don't. Until we've experienced it, then we can be satisfied with just a belief that everything's Ma and Ma's become everything. Although true, it's not our direct experience, right? Mahā-māyā, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. You're welcome to come if you like. We're just finishing up. We're doing names of the Kali Sahasranāma Stotram. What time is it now? Probably close.
17.
Okay, we're gonna finish. At least this one first verse. So one time I'm remembering a story where a Holy Mother, Sri Sharada Devi, she in Thakur said also that she was like a cat. An ash-covered cat, a cat that rolls around in the fireplace ash. You can't see her quality. She hid herself, right? You couldn't tell how great she was. Ramakrishna was always teaching the highest philosophy, dancing, ecstasy, almost miraculous, right? So people knew his power. Holy Mother was more hidden, and she had all domestic problems, and so she's dealing with her family problems and cooking and making betel rolls for people, and so much not being able to sleep because of her niece is not well like this. And so one of her attendants says, are you not in Maya? Right? It seems like you're in Maya like all of us. He says, I am Maya. Right? Right? There's a difference. It's not that I am in Maya, I am Maya. So that's a different thing. She is mahā-māyā. She's the controller of it, but interesting. So, I think, where are we? Mahā-māyā? Sudantī. So ghora-daṁṣṭrā. So the horrible teeth. Like she's also sudantī. Danti, we get the word danta also, teeth. Su means good. right? So it's this, so she's mahā-māyā behind everything. Then what is the thing that, if she's the one manifesting everything, then this horrible thing that we thought was horrible, ghora-rūpā, ghora-daṁṣṭrā, is actually sudantī. It's actually quite, it's divine. It's pearly, and you see, our forms, we have her in pearly whites also. You go like this, right? Because you see, then the world of name and form and time is not, we see it as divine, but mahā-māyā covers, we don't see. If mahā-māyā uncovers, then we see what's actually there. We see the one that's actually there. Then even in the world of name and form and duality, we see the one, right? And it's, then her quality is anantam, jnanam, sundaram, these, it's wonderful, right? And then the final, I think the final, right? Also, another thing about, another quality, yeah, I think I could mention, it doesn't quite fit our discussion, but it's part of the idea of her teeth, is in her, by saying sudantā, in the image of Kali we mentioned the three colors are rajas, tamas, and sattva, right? But actually you see her teeth, we only see a little bit of her teeth, what they're showing, because the different stories have different things, but in the general iconography in temples, you see her biting her tongue. And Bengalis give us some story about why she bit her tongue, and there's some important, beautiful stories about that. But the yogis and philosophers, they give an interpretation of that, is that the red color of her tongue is rajaguna, and the white color of her teeth is sattvaguna. And so the way you have to go, so rajaguna has to be controlled by sattvaguna, right? This is so by biting the teeth represents this in one sense, right? The sudantā, su means sattvic, good, right? So her teeth are also sattvic. So it's also showing us by seeing all this talk about her horrible teeth that swallow universes, right, as time and space. But we also see in the iconography her teeth are not. Of course, time and space is wonderful and not bad. It's her, but as an iconographical reminder. In sadhana is that we have to control our rajas through sattva, and the tongue represents eating, speaking, like this. So we have to control. This is the secret of these are some yogis give this interpretation. So I wanted to mention it before moving. We'll go back to her teeth I think later, but and then the final Yuga Dantura, right? So Dantura also means teeth. Right, again, yuga means ages. So this is why we can use that interpretation we've been using, that her teeth represent, the ghora-daṁṣṭrā represents time, is hearsay. Her teeth are, this one thing is her teeth are the yugas, right? Not just this in the moment of time. It's epic. You can see it's like right now every moment we're dying, every moment we're changing, but still there's a sense of continuality, right? But it's good to remember sometimes that one of these days, this whole society that we've built, and the cities and monuments and like this, will be a layer of colored sand in an archaeological dig. It just represent, the whole thing will represent one little layer of colored sand, right? And the yugas will devour everything. So that's one thing, that her teeth, her claws are the yugas themselves, time, like that. Or another thing, her teeth devour yugas. Even time with these big epochs, like, well, we're in this period of time, it will also change, right? It's another, and to keep that triplet of interpretation, she's also beyond, by saying that she's beyond the time. In the Sahasranāma, there's a name. It's not this name. It's very similar. Yuga Dantura. I think it's Yuga-Dhari, I think is one of her names in Sahasranāma. Something like that. She who holds the yugas. Same idea, right? She's beyond holding. But the commentaries, the Bhaskara, the ancient commentary, he gives it beautifully. He says his tradition, and we kind of follow as you take. It means this, but if you think about it, also means this. And you think about it, also means this, and they fit, So, and we trust, we believe he was an illumined soul guided by the Devi to reveal this, so we can share. He says that yuga also has, it's like yoga. Yuga has a similar meaning of yoking, right, and of connecting, but it's not just connecting. In like a normal sense, we think to yoke something is to take two things and put them together, right? So those two things are the world of duality. So in other words, by saying yuga is the world, which these big periods of time and space are also duality. And then he says that duality, the ultimate foundation of the world of duality, is Shiva Shakti, right? So she is is the one who is the world duality, the one Shiva Shakti as the world duality, or Purusha Prakriti, and she's the one behind the world duality. So it's interesting that even that still ends up meaning the same thing, both as time in the yugas, or as, because time has no meaning without the world duality, without Shiva and Shakti, the play of Shiva and Shakti. So I think it's probably a good time. We only did one. I thought maybe we'd get to verse 2, the second verse 12, but I didn't. So I translated the verses and kind of mentally prepared, but I'll be better prepared next week. I didn't really spend much time on it. But ghora-rūpā, ghora-daṁṣṭrā, ghora-ghora-tarā śubhā, mahā-daṁṣṭrā, mahā-māyā, sudantī, yuga-dantura. So this is describing primarily her teeth. The next verse will describe her eyes. The next verse describes her smile and her mood, and then it describes her inner passion. Very interesting, right? And then when you get to that, then you end up with like Chanda and Prachanda and Chandika and Prachandika and Chinnamasta. Then it gets a little bit bewildering, those names. But it's interesting, this is the foundation for understanding. It's going through her iconography in a very deep, profound way. But also following traditional. It says so some you can follow when you do dhyana of a deity, you usually do from the feet to the head and the head to the feet. But it says in the Devi you start at her feet, at the head, and go down. There's a way of so it's also following in the I think Sandur Lahari does the same thing, if I remember properly. It starts at her face and goes down, maybe. Make it also get it wrong. But anyway, thank you for your kind attention. Any questions or discussion? Online, anything? That's good. Everybody knows the truth. Jai Ma Kali, Jai Thakur, Jai Ma. All right. Jai Ma. Peterji, can you click the? I think there's a finish on the, or maybe is it obvious? Thank you.